Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCullum, and I'm here today at the IRCGN, the Central Ballistics Lab of the French Gendarmerie Nationale, and we're taking a look at some really rare German last-ditch World War II firearms today. Specifically, we have a Gerät Potsdam here. This is a nearly exact German copy of the Sten Mark II, and you might wonder, like, why would the Germans copy the Sten Mark II? Didn't they have enough other projects going on? And the answer is, well, yeah, they certainly did. But one of the distinctive features of the German small arms industry in late World War II was throwing everything at the wall to see what stuck and engaging in way too many projects for their own good. But there is reason behind the madness of Germans making Sten copies, and that is the Germans had a lot of Stens. The British were airdropping quite a lot of Sten guns around Europe, and of course the Germans were capturing Sten guns in combat action with British troops, such to the point that the Germans had some fairly large stockpiles of Stens, and they actually, by late in the war, they were issuing them out to people. Otto Skorzeny's commandos got a batch of like 100 Sten guns. Some of the Volkssturm Gauleiter, the Volkssturm districts in Germany, got batches of hundreds or thousands of Sten guns for their regional Volkssturm defensive use. And at this point, by late in the war, by the autumn of '44, the Sten gun had kind of proven itself in combat. The idea of this is just some desperate British sheet metal monstrosity, well, that's kind of allayed by the fact that they keep using them and they keep working pretty well. And hey, the Germans need a cheap firearm, cheap, fast-to-manufacture firearm, so why not? We've already got Stens in service, let's just make a copy of it and make some more of them. So in the fall of 1944, Mauser, the Mauser company, got a contract to make 10,000 copies of the British Sten Mark II. I believe this was designated, the Sten itself was designated the MP749E in German service. And so they got to work on it, and they knocked this one out pretty quickly. Unlike a lot of the other late war developmental programs, it's easy to make a Sten, and they had a lot of examples to work from. So Mauser actually manufactured 2 sets of drawings for this gun. And by the way, they called it Gerät Potsdam, which means Potsdam device. It was just a code name named after a German city, Potsdam. And like I said, they made 2 versions of the drawings. One was intended for use by a factory like Mauser, and then they also made a set of drawings that was intended for use by distributed small shops. The idea of, you know, we're gonna, in order to make this resilient against bombing attacks, we're gonna decentralize the manufacture, and every little small shop's gonna make a few of its own parts, which is actually kind of how the British made the Sten gun. Now, the plan apparently, or the idea, was to actually engage in distributed wide-scale manufacture of the Sten. They never actually did that. Instead, Mauser knocked out 10,000 of these guns in November and December of 1944. Actually, 9,972 of them, we know from Mauser records, were delivered and accepted by the Wehrmacht. So, I said this is almost a perfect copy of the Sten Mark II. Let me show you the few little details that allow us to distinguish the two. All right, very hard to fit Sten guns all the way in frame here because they have that magazine sticking way out the side. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. We'll take the magazine out. This is a total copy of the Sten Mark II functionally. Parts will interchange. In particular, magazines will interchange. And perhaps the strangest thing about it is they even actually copied the British selector marking. So this is marked R for repetition and A for automatic. It is the selector lever and it does work. The giveaways to the Gerät Potsdam are this and this. So if I bring in this is a long branch Sten Mark II right here. The British made the barrel shroud here out of seamless tubing. The Germans wrapped it, folded it over, and spot welded it together. And then the British have a seam in the front of the magazine well that's just butted together and welded off, where the Germans, once again at Mauser, folded over and spot welded the magazine well assembly. So those are the 2 really distinctive differences. There are no other markings on this Gerät Potsdam, it's not marked with a Mauser name or a date. It's not even serialized. But there are a few other things that we can look at that are a bit unique to it. So for one thing, we have these spot welds on that barrel shroud, and those are attaching the shroud itself to the metal block inside that holds the barrel in place. Everyone loves to like rag on HK's really awful looking welds. The Mauser welds on this thing look even more atrocious. This is done so haphazardly, quickly. Like, they're good enough. They don't fall off. They're gonna work. There's not a lot of stress on these things. But man, the weld quality on there is terrible. Just straight up terrible. All right, now I also want to take the barrel out for you. So if we just rotate that to the downward position, I can then unscrew the barrel shroud, and it comes completely off the barrel, which is not the same as a regular Sten. On the British Sten Mark II, this handguard is held in place. Let's see if we can, there you go. You can see it right there. There's a cross pin going through the barrel, not through the bore, but across the top of the barrel, and that pin prevents the barrel shroud from coming off the barrel. The Germans didn't bother with that. There's no hole in this for a cross pin. This also has 6 lands and grooves of rifling. There you go. The Stens have either 2 or 4, depending on the period of manufacture. So the barrel is just slightly different if you know exactly what you're looking for. Now, while the Germans had a decent supply of Sten guns and presumably had a bunch of magazines for them, they did also manufacture new magazines for the Gerät Potsdam. And it was specifically the Haenel company that got a contract to do this. In 44 and 45, they delivered 39,300 essentially Sten magazines to the German army for these submachine guns. Now, this one is a regular British-made Sten magazine. The way you can tell the Potsdam magazines apart is that they have this spring tab style of floor plate, very much like the MP40 magazines. Now, the reason that Haenel got the contract to make magazines is Haenel was already set up to make this magazine. This is the MP28/2 magazine. This is the magazine that the British copied to make the Sten gun, and MP28 mags, in fact, fit and function in Sten guns. So Haenel already had the tooling, essentially, to make Sten magazines with this rather distinctively German floor plate. So this one's an MP28 mag. It's not a Haenel Gerät Potsdam magazine, but in theory, if you're looking at one of these German-made Stens, the correct magazine for it will be a Sten magazine with this style of floor plate. By the way, this is 20 rounds. The Germans were making 32 rounders. This just happens to be the only MP28 magazine that was conveniently at hand. Let's go ahead and just take the rest of this apart. So we push the button in, slide the buttstock assembly off, then rotate that. Just like the Sten gun, we have the cap and the locking piece, and a charging handle comes out. The British had a variety of different charging handle styles for the Sten. This is specifically what Mauser made for the Potsdam. There you go. One Parkerized Gerät Potsdam bolt, identical to a Sten bolt. All right, and there you have one Mauser-made copy of the British Mark II Sten, the Gerät Potsdam, all field stripped. So the reason that there were only 10,000 of these made and that manufacture ended in December of 1944, which it did, is that before the manufacture even started, Mauser was ordered to further simplify the design. Instead of just a strict copy of the British Sten, they were supposed to then go in and, look, let's see where we can actually simplify this even more. And so rather than abandon the efforts they'd already started, they went ahead with their 10,000 gun contract and then continued simplifying the guns. And the further simplified version got the codename Project Neumünster, or Gerät Neumünster, which is also known as the MP3008, based on some of the document numbers that were associated with it. So those went into production after the Potsdam was finished, more of those are around today. I mean, not a lot of those, but a lot more of them than of these. These are extremely rare today. And those are a little easier to identify because they were able to further simplify the design. They did things like go to a vertical magazine well that was just welded straight in place instead of rotating for storage like the Sten guns did. They got rid of having the removable barrel shroud. Believe it or not, you can in fact simplify something beyond a Sten Mark II, and that would be the German MP3008. Anyway, I have a separate video already up on the MP3008, so if you're interested in where German Sten gun production went after this, you can check that video out. I will link to it in the description text below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. This is a super rare gun to find, and it was very cool of the gendarmes here outside of Paris to give me access to their excellent reference collection, pull this one out and film it for you guys. Thanks for watching.